Welcome you all for this fourth and special webinar of the series on the topic sexual harassment of women at workplace, rights and responsibilities by our special speaker, Professor Dr. Meenu Gupta ma'am. On behalf of our team, AP Legal Chambers, and on my personal behalf, I welcome all the participants here. Thank you for the overwhelming response for the event. And as you are all aware, the maximum limit in Google Meet is only 250 participants. And as on 5 p.m. today, we had 268 registrations. As always, the entire credit of this event, I owe it to our special speaker, Dr. Meenu Gupta ma'am only. This is not a customary practice to pass the credit to the speaker, but in principle, we are just providing a platform for the special speaker to connect with the participants and vice versa. I would just like to give you a few points before we go into the session. Kindly mute your audio, and if possible, you can even close your video. The entire session will be an interactive one, and opportunity will be given to all the participants to ask questions, if you have any, to the special speaker after the presentation. The entire session is a moderated session, and if you have any questions, you kindly type it in the chat box. All your questions will be answered by our special speaker. For all those who are attending this webinar continuously, you might be knowing us. For those who have come here for the first time, we are Team AP Legal Chambers, a new age law firm in Delhi NCR with its branch office in Chennai. We started our journey in 2017 with a vision of providing plenary services to our clients to resolve their legal issues. AP Legal portfolio covers a broad spectrum of law, specialized services including domestic and international laws, constitutional laws, IPR, energy law, corporate and commercial advisory, arbitration and compliance. We started organizing webinars for our passion towards law, and due to the tremendous response from the participants, we are organizing the webinars on every Thursdays and Sundays. We owe our sincere gratitude to Major General Nilendra Kumar sir, former Director, Amity Law School and Director, Lex Concilium Foundations. Advocate Joseph Aristotle sir, Advocate on Record, Supreme Court of India. Advocate Ram Shankar sir, Supreme Court of India. Advocate Saravanan Raja sir, Advocate on Record, Supreme Court of India. Professor Aarti Ratna, School of Excellence in Law, Chennai. Professor Ankit Rai, IMS Noida. Assistant Professor Arun Kumar Subramaniam, FIMT. Assistant Professor Swati Pandita, FIMT. Professor Shinkla Swarup, Prestige Institute of Management and Research, Indore. Dr. Ausaf Ahmad Malik, SRMS College of Law, Bareilly. Professor V. Vijayendra Bhatt, SMVITM, Bandkal, for their continuous support and encouragement. So coming to this topic, our ancient scriptures have always extolled the gurus. The guru is considered the supreme person who imparts knowledge to others. Mata, Pita, Guru, Daivam is a famous verse. According to Kabir, Guru Gobind Dovum Kade, Kake Lagum Paum, Balihari Guru Apne, Govind Dio Batai. A teacher is a guiding force. We cannot tell where exactly their influence stops. They touch our mind and awaken our soul. One teacher awakened Arjuna. One teacher influenced Swami Vivekananda. One teacher transformed Shivaji Maharaj as a hero. Likewise, we have in our midst my teacher, our teacher, and teacher for more than 1,000 students, past and present and counting, across India and globally as well. She has credited she has been a creator, and she has, to her credit, created a lawyer out of an ordinary student like me and made us compete with the best in the industry. When I approached Meenu ma'am, she did not have second thoughts in accepting my invitation. When I asked her to send her bio, she deliberately cut short the details and sent only a single page profile. A brief introduction about our special speaker. Professor Dr. Meenu Gupta is a passionate writer and a fervent academician. She has more than 18 years of dedicated academic experience to her credit. She cleared UGC NET and earned her doctorate on Crime Against Women, a socio-legal study from Dr. B.R. Ambedkar University, Agra. She specializes in criminal law and is a fierce advocate of women's rights. No doubt, she is the apt person to speak on the current topic. While serving Amity Law School, Noida, in the capacity of PG and Research Department Coordinator, she has contributed to the development of law school and provided opportunities for education, research, and capacity building to students. She worked with IMS Law College, Noida, for approximately 6 years before joining Amity Law School, Noida. She had an illustrious career as an advocate and was awarded the prestigious Lawyer of the Year award by Lions Club International for providing legal aid to needy persons. She has guided more than 70 LLM dissertations, including mine. 3 PhD research scholars submitted their thesis under her able guidance, and presently 8 PhD research scholars covering a wide range of subjects are working with her. She deliberated on various legal issues as resource person, chairperson, and panelist in various FDPs, seminars, and conferences. She has to her credit various national and international research publications and a book titled Laws Governing in Media and Entertainment Industry. She has contributed as reviewer and editor of Amity International Journal of Legal and Multidisciplinary Studies, Excellence International Journal of Education and Research, and Themes. Her participation in seminars and conferences, both at national and international level, has always been valued and appreciated. Now, she is actively involved in shaping the career of various PG students through practical exposure and skill development. There is no better person to talk on this topic than our special speaker, Meenu Gupta ma'am, as she has been vociferous in these particular issues. I have not gone into the intricacies of this act, which she will be covering today, and come here blank on this subject, and as usual seeking ma'am's guidance in this topic. Without taking another minute of your time, I hand over the session to Dr. Meenu Gupta ma'am. Over to you,
ma'am. Thank you so much, Mr. Anand, and good evening, everybody. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude to AP Legal Chambers, especially to Mr. Anand Kumar for giving me or providing me such an opportunity to share my views on this important and contemporary issue. During this time of epidemic, through these types of intellectual engagements, actually academic committee, or we can say legal fraternity, has proved that no wall, no barrier can restrict the light of knowledge. We just need a small spark. And for this, I give credit to Mr. Kumar. Now, topic of today is sexual harassment against women at workplace, rights and responsibilities. So coming to the topic, we must remember that it is not a new age crime. It existed in the society since time immemorial. And if we try to throw some light on theological aspect, in Western theology, in Christianity, Islam, these religions regarded men as sinner. So the basic character of man as per Western theology is disobedience. And we can easily verify it. The first sin being Adam. Adam disobeyed the God by eating forbidden apple and ultimately thrown to the earth. So this is the basic character of the man. But when we concern about that Eastern theology part, according to Eastern theology, man is potentially divine. And this divinity is within the human being itself. And this divinity provides power to control the nature or evil outside the human being as well as inside the human being. So from this perspective, the act of disobedience, including harassment in the form of sexual harassment, is the act born within a person but performed outside against the woman as an object. In contemporary India, if we consider contemporary India, sexual harassment at workplace is considered as violation of women's right to equality, life, and personal liberty. It creates an insecure and hostile work environment which discourages women's participation in work and thereby adversely affects their social as well as economic empowerment. With this idea, the Indian legislature passed the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act of 2013. Being law person, all of you are already aware that the need for such legislation was observed first time by the Supreme Court in Vishakha versus State of Rajasthan. And prior to this act, the offense of sexual harassment at workplace were dealt under the Indian Penal Code as offense. And in addition, the sexual harassment at workplace was and still being met with departmental action under respective regulations and rules. But in Vishakha case, the apex court, the Supreme Court, in exercise of power available under Article 32 of the Constitution, framed few guidelines to be followed at all workplaces as well as institutions until the legislation is enacted for the purpose, as there were no effective and special law at that time. And Supreme Court incorporated basic principles of human rights enshrined in Constitution of India under Article 14, 15, 19 and 21. And provisions of CEDAW, Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. It is international convention, and India is signatory of the convention, and it has been ratified in the year 1993. So while considering all these aspects, Supreme Court framed certain guidelines. And legislature passed the act in the year 2013 based on the guidelines issued by the Supreme Court. The act has total 30 sections. It is a small act, And this act is divided into 8 chapters. Act obviously defines sexual harassment as unwelcome act or behavior, whether directly or indirectly. Physical contact and advances, demand or request for sexual favors, making some sexually colored remarks, showing pornography, or any other unwelcome physical, verbal, or non-verbal conduct of sexual nature. So any act of unwelcome and sexual nature can be considered as sexual harassment. Workplace sexual harassment takes many different forms. It can come from your boss, from a co-worker, from a supervisor, from any customer or client, and it ranges from unwanted touching, inappropriate comments or joke, or something promising promising a promotion in exchange of sexual favor. Sometimes it may be promise of preferential treatment, or sometimes it may be threat of detrimental treatment or humiliation that likely to affect health or safety of that lady. So sexual harassment does not have to be, you must remember that sexual harassment does not have to be sexual. It can also look like teasing, intimidation, or sometimes offensive comments based on stereotype or bullying someone or a group of people based on their sex, gender, identity, or sexual orientation. Sometimes simply physical contact or advances may not necessarily amount to sexual harassment. It has been held by Delhi High Court in the case of Shanta Kumar versus CSIR that physical contact or advances would constitute sexual harassment provided such physical contact is a part of the sexually determined behavior. So it has many forms and many ranges. So we cannot put sexual harassment into a simple frame. The most important feature of 2013 Act is that it provided the setting up of internal complaint committee at every office or every office of the organization as well as institution where there are more than 10 employees. And if there are less than 10 employees, then this act provided for setting up of a local committee in every district by the district officer. And all these through act, the powers of the civil court has been vested in these committee. In Ruchika Singh case, Delhi High Court in its judgment mentioned that it is necessary to constitute the internal complaint committee in every institution as per the requirement mentioned under the law. So it is obligatory for the employer to constitute ICC. And while considering the nature of the crime, the constitution of ICC should be out of total members, there should be one half of the committee should be women member. So there will be one presiding officer that should be lady, then 2 members that may be related to some legal fraternity or some social work, and there will be 1 member from NGO. But as whole, one half of the committee should be or must be lady. So any aggrieved woman can file a written complaint to internal complaint committee or local committee, and there are time limit for filing this complaint. She can file this complaint within the 3 months from the date of the incident, and if there is series of incident, so within 3 months from the last incident. However, if there is any delay in the filing of the complaint, it can be condoned by the committee up to further 3 months if they think it is appropriate. On receiving the complaint, the committee first of all try to manage the conciliation. It is responsibility of the committee that before initiation of any inquiry, it may take steps to settle the matter between the complainant and the respondent through the conciliation. And if this conciliation fails and they will not arrive to any settlement, then in such case, the committee shall proceed further with the inquiry. Act provided special provisions for the domestic workers as well. And in such case, if local committee, in such case, it is necessary to put the complaint in front of local committee, and if prima facie case exists, the local committee forwarded the complaint to the local police station, and it is compulsory that police register the complaint within the period of 7 days under section 509 of IPC or any other relevant provision. Suppose both parties are employee, co-workers, so the principle of natural justice is followed, and both the parties are heard and opportunity will be given to make representation against the finding of the committee. It is necessary that committee will complete the inquiry within the period of 90 days. And committee has powers to give certain interim reliefs as well. So there are time limits, Act prescribed time limit on each and every aspect. And the committee within 10 days after completion of the inquiry must provide the report of its findings to the employer, district office, as well as concerned parties. And if allegation has been proved, the committee, ICC, recommend the employer or district officer to take the action for sexual harassment as misconduct in accordance with the provisions of the service rule. And if there are no service rules, then as prescribed under Rule 9 of the Central Government Sexual Harassment Rule 2013. And under this, the employer or district officer direct them to pay such sum to the aggrieved woman as it considered appropriate in accordance with the provisions of section 15, and it will be made from the salary of the respondent. Suppose committee find that the complaint is false or malicious, or false evidence would be given. So in such case, committee may recommend the employer or district officer to take action in accordance with the provisions of the service rule, and if there are no such service rules, in such manner as prescribed under Rule 10 of the Sexual Harassment Rules 2013. Not only this, the Act also provided provisions of appeal. So, if parties are not satisfied with the decision of the committee, they can file an appeal in the court or tribunal within the 19 days. So, apart from this procedure, the Act also laid down certain duties of the employer and district officer for creating awareness on sexual harassment at workplace, and it includes sensitization of the employees, then assistance to the complaint committee. So it is duty of the every employer to sensitize their employees about sexual harassment at workplace. And if any employer not complies with the Act, it may result into the fine. And not only fine, it can also lead to cancellation of his license, registration, whatever. Even though the Act is in force since 2013, the awareness regarding consequences of sexual harassment and its redressal against the same is even limited. The effective implementation of this Act not only requires creating an environment where women can speak up about their grievances without any fear and get justice, but also sensitization of men towards treatment of women at workplace is equally necessary. And since this topic is hot topic, there are various cases, various guidelines given by the Supreme Court. There are many cases. It may be A.K. Chopra case.
Madam, I think your line is in mute.
Now it is audible?
Yes, now it is audible, madam. Please proceed. Yeah.
So, we were discussing various cases by the Supreme Court on this topic, such as A. Chopra case. In this case, Supreme Court declared that sexual harassment is gender discrimination against women, and also said that any act or attempt of molestation by a superior will constitute sexual harassment. Then there is a famous case of Rupan Deol Bajaj. This case has changed the meaning of the term modesty and privacy in such a way that any kind of harassment or inconvenience done to a woman's private or public life will be considered as an offense. Then there is Vishakha case, then Megha Kotwal case. In Megha Kotwal case, the Supreme Court directed to implement the guidelines successfully by issuing notice to all state and the union territories to impart the necessary steps. So there are series of cases in which Supreme Court as well as High Court dealt with sexual harassment. But every coin has two sides. So for that, we can take the reference of Me Too movement. And I hope all of you are aware of it. There are many cases in relation to Me Too movement. That is one case of lady district judge of Gwalior, then one Supreme Court judge as well as female intern case, then Tarun Tejpal case, Tehlka Akban. Then there are many cases. So I hope all of you are aware that in law, time is essence. Time is most important. And there is one legal maxim: delay defeats equity. And law favors him who is vigilant. And all these incidents or cases came across after the 30, 20 or 10 years. So it creates some suspicion in the mind. We can take MJ Akbar case. We can take that famous actor Alok Nath case. In fact, these two cases, MJ Akbar and Alok Nath, defamation cases are still pending. And not only in India, we can take example of US. In case of Bill Clinton, in fact, Bill Clinton admitted that he kissed his lady secretary, but lady secretary has not complained for sexual harassment. Similarly, during the election of President Trump, most of the female folk opened their mouth during that election period. So we have lots of examples, but it is necessary unless complaint is without any delay, the cases of sexual harassment ought to be put to a strict test. If there is earlier consent, it cannot turn into sexual harassment merely due to later misunderstanding between the parties. And all these cases, the date, time, and place ought to be considered of prime significance. This is brief introduction of sexual harassment at workplace. Now I am open for any question. If there is any query, any question, we can discuss further.
Thank you very much, madam, for your wonderful introduction.
Session.
Thank you very much, madam, for your wonderful introduction about this topic. You have opened new avenues for all the attendees here to think about, ponder what we have thought about sexual harassment and what in reality and what is that women have been facing of late. So this is not a new topic, as you already mentioned. Sexual harassment has been here for ages. But now that due to the development of social media and other platforms, the women are coming out boldly and approaching the media or the employer to seek redressal. In fact, judiciary. Yeah, I request other participants. Yeah, I request the participants to kindly type the questions in the chat box. Your questions will also be answered.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. So as we were discussing, madam, now the women are boldly coming out and filing complaints in the police station, or coming out and writing about that person in openly in social media. So do you think there is a vast difference in the approach or mindset of the women in the late 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and now presently some 50 decades? What do you think about the development as a whole in the last 5 decades, madam?
Yeah, definitely. It is true that women are not too weak nowadays due to economic and social advancement. And obviously, we can give credit to social media as well as, but as I said earlier, that there is also two sides of the same coin. So although it is necessary for the empowerment of the women, but sometimes we can go through various examples that these complaints are just to seek attention, or just to seek attention of the media, or just for popularity. So there is need to maintain the balance between these two things, since it is not only harmful for ladies, but it is also social stigma for a male member. So there is need to maintain a balance, but it is essential that there should be speedy justice.
Yes, madam. Thank you. That was wonderfully covered. Now, one question has been asked by our Guru Kripal Singh Bajaj sir. He is Colonel G.S. Bajaj, and he would like to ask you about this prevention of sexual harassment at workplace in army, and see the forces when they have to fight neck to neck with men. The women folks are neck to neck with men. So what is that? What is the rule, or what is your take on that at workplace sexual harassment in army?
As I earlier covered, that it is not necessary that only physical contact or some advances may constitute the sexual harassment. And in to constitute the offense of sexual harassment, it is necessary that such physical contact is a part of sexually determined behavior. So obviously, women are taking part in army, and they are taking part in each and every front. So there may be more chances of this offense, but as earlier covered, that there is need to take precautions, and whether it is army personnels or common men, there is need to sensitize them, and there is need to conduct strict inquiry and take the strict actions if committee found that such complaint is true. And in army, there is system of court martial as well. I think General Bajaj also know about it, and they have dealt with such type of cases.
Yes, ma'am. I think you have covered almost all the points required for this question. Moving on to the next one, it is asked by Ms. Parinita Goswami. Can employer retaliate against me for filing a sexual harassment claim?
Okay. So for this, I just want to cover this answer with the example, live example. Actually, when we talk about Indian female, actually Indian female lives in two types of reality. social as well as legal. In legal capacity, she has equal rights, protection and opportunities, and in same manner, the employer, it is obligatory of the employer to provide relief to the complainant. But when it comes to the social reality, truth is far away from the legal reality. The women are still oppressed. Here I am not talking about the minority group. So there is need to spread the awareness and sensitize the people unless we whole as society recognize her importance in economic growth as well as employment for the nation. All these enactment for women empowerment would only be lip service with no tangible result. I have one example of it. One of my known person, she worked in private institution, and due to some sexual comment as well as sexual gesture, she complained within the internal committee for the sexual harassment. In such case, employer tried to suppress the case, but later on they asked the respondent to leave the institution, and that respondent left the institution. After 6 months of that incident, they created such an atmosphere in the institution that female complainant must left the institution. So in practically, situation is entirely different from legal scenario.
Yes, madam. I think you have shared the experience at your workplace, I think. So this one, I think, would have answered Parinita's question. Moving on to the next one. It is by Advocate Sujata N. Shirolkar. Just a minute. Yeah. What are the ingredients for sexual harassment?
Ingredients, okay. As mentioned in the act itself, in the definition of sexual harassment, there is no such special aspect. It may be any kind of direct or indirect act that constitute sexual harassment. It may be unwelcome act or behavior. It may be some gesture. It may be SMS or email. It may be showing some pornography, or it may be any comment in relation to their sex or their sexual orientation. It may be threat for, it may be it may be some favor in the employment. So there are many forms and many acts that may constitute sexual harassment. It varies from case to case, but it is necessary that all these should relate to some sexual favor.
Just adding one more point,
For
madam.
taking some sexual favor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just adding one more point. Do you think just a funny banter or a good light-hearted joke constitute sexual harassment?
Yeah, it depends upon the circumstances of the case. Suppose it may relate to act of that female, some stereotype act, like for example, about how certain people are or should act. So if this type of behavior is there, it may be a joke or bullying. It may amount to sexual harassment.
Just a small add-on, madam. Do you think it depends upon the scenario or depends upon the woman?
No, it's depend upon the circumstances of the case. Yeah, there is a line, or we can say a limitation for each and every woman, and committee can decide on the basis of background of that male or female worker or atmosphere of that organization. So it depends upon the fact of the cases.
Just clarifying to the participants and all the viewers as well, it is a lighthearted way. I am carrying out a good cop, bad cop role. I have the highest regard for all the women and treat them equally. So these questions are general questions which need to be answered, and there is no other better person than our special speaker to address all these issues. That is why, on behalf of you people, I am just asking a few questions which most of us are having doubts on. So moving on to the next question, it is by Mr. Jeet King. In which tribunal the appeal of sexual harassment case will be filed?
It will depend upon the, if it is suppose industry.
Madam, I think your call is on mute again. Madam, I think your call is on mute again.
Now it is audible.
Yeah, it is now audible. Yeah.
Okay, so appeal to the appellate authority, that is Industry Employment Standing Order Act, and authority. Industrial Employment Standing Order Act of 1946. Or they can go to NCW to take up the case. NCW is playing an important role in dealing all these cases.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Moving on to the next question. It is by Advocate Sujata ma'am again. Where to file first complaint and punishment for sexual harassment? First, where do we need to file our first complaint as an aggrieved party?
First complaint should be in ICC, Internal Complaint Committee.
Yes, madam. Now moving on to the next one. It is by Mr. Jaimini Nayak. How cases related to Me Too are applicable to sexual harassment cases at workplace? So I think you covered the, I think Mr. Nayak has misunderstood the concept as a whole. She covered it. What are all the areas in which the entire sexual harassment has been used in a wrong connotation is what was mentioned by our special speaker. Yes. Anyway, I will just ask, let ma'am to answer the question.
As earlier covered, that for sexual harassment cases, it is time is an important aspect. And if you want any relief, these Me Too cases all are related to sexual harassment. But they depict these cases put forwarded after a long gap of time. So such type of gap create suspicion in the mind of the person that these complaint or all these things bring to the notice of the public just for the sake of seeking attention on the media, or just to just for the disrupt the reputation of that person.
Yes, ma'am. I think this would have cleared the doubts. Now moving on to the next question. It is by Ms. Rama T. Me Too, is it a reality or exaggeration? What is your opinion? So I think we can just give it a one-word answer in this, whether it is a reality or exaggeration.
Okay, so to answer this question, I would like to refer chapter 18 of Bhagavad Gita, which says that every human activity carries with it evil, as fire carries smoke. So, in such a view, the cases of exaggeration also cannot be ruled out. But as earlier said, that just for some drawback or only to avoid some benefits out of that, we can say like it is excess of gender justice. So we just because of excess of gender justice, we cannot ignore this important aspect. And Indian female are not only Indian female, in the entire world, women are suffering from this sexual harassment act at workplace.
Yes, ma'am. Next, I will just move to the next question. So it is again by Bajaj sir. How is sexual harassment be addressed in armed forces as nothing you mentioned in your talk? Sir, I think Madam has given a brief details. She has touched it on briefly, and I think this is an important topic of discussion as a whole. So I think we can discuss it in another webinar organized by us. So next, moving on to the next one, it is by Ms. Neeraja Chaturvedi. What is digital sensitization of personal data? Does it also amount to sexual harassment?
Digital sensitization of personal data.
If you are working in an organization,
could you please clarify the question?
No, if you are working in an organization and any of your employer or the person who is responsible has an access to your personal information, and if you pass it on to the digital media or any of your information posted in social media, if it is passed on or it has been presented in
yes, of course, it would amount to sexual harassment. And there is 2-3 cases by the Supreme Court on this issue as well. So it is definitely constitute the offense of sexual harassment.
Yes, ma'am. Next one is by Mr. Shubhag Kumar. What are the changes possible by implementing the Sexual Harassment Workplace Act? So what do you think, will there be any change in the mindset or in the society as a whole?
As we all aware that Indian society is patriarchal society, and it is not easy to change the mindset. We don't have a magic wand that ghumaya or ho gaya. So we need time. We can change mindset of the society gradually. For that, we need to conduct various sensitization workshops, as well as there is need to set the few examples if any occur in the institution. So there is need to early deal with this issue, so that you can set the example in your, not only in your organization, but you can set example for other organization as well. So we can change the mindset gradually. We can make aware people gradually. And for that, we need more and more efforts, and especially from the side of the employer.
This looks promising, but requires a lot of changes. Am I right, ma'am?
Yeah.
Yeah. The next one is sexual harassment a subjective experience?
Yeah, you can say that, since fact of the case is different in each and every case. So it is somehow subjective. And obviously, somehow various internal inquiry committee considered the background of that female, background of that male, their educational background, their economic background, their social background, as well as atmosphere of that company, environment of that company or organization. So it is somehow subjective.
Thank you, ma'am. The next one is asked by Ms. Shakti Chaturvedi. What about areas under AFSPA, Armed Forces Special Power Act, where women are sexually harassed in the name of inquiry and investigation, and such actions can't be questioned? So do you think the high-handedness of these officials also tantamounts to sexual harassment, or is it just a dereliction of duty which has to be taken on a serious note by the higher officials?
It is, I think, misconduct on the part of that persons, and there are different service rules for that persons, although it would not amount to sexual harassment at workplace. So these two things are different: sexual harassment of women and sexual harassment of women at workplace. So it is not sexual harassment of women at workplace, and there are different service rules provided under their employment rules, so they can dealt with. Or apart from this, we have criminal offences as well. Section 354 A, B, and C and D. They provided punishment as well as definition of sexual harassment. So sexual harassment at workplace is different.
Yes, I think with that answer, we'll move to the next one. This particular topic is sexual harassment against women at workplace. So moving on to the next one, it is by Ms. Jury Goswami. Ma'am, even after implementation of the Act in 2013, the cases are growing day by day, knowingly or unknowingly. Would you like to suggest any alternative to stop these practices?
No doubt cases are increasing, but this is not only because of crime rate is increasing, it is also because now female are aware about their right. So they are coming forward, and they raise their voice against such type of behavior. So this is the one reason, along with the another reason. To take type of cases, it is necessary to create healthy environment at workplace. and obviously we can impose certain responsibility of on the parents of the child, that they inculcate such moral behavior as well as skills in the child's mind, that they cannot treat female candidate or male candidate distinctly. So it is necessary to groom the population in such a manner that we can curtail the difference between men and women. Only through this we can change the mindset of the society, and we can create a healthy environment at the workplace.
Yes, madam. Now moving on to an interesting question by Mr. Vankesh Sharma. Is it sexual harassment if anybody asks a co-worker for a date?
Obviously, again, it will depend upon the circumstances of the case. So, and I'm not part of internal inquiry committee, and asking for a date can be sexual harassment or cannot be. It will depend upon background of their previous conversation, their previous dealing. So in one line, we cannot answer this question whether asking for date is sexual harassment or not.
I think that person has to ask the person who will accept the date rather than giving complaint against him. So if that person accepts, that do not amount to sexual harassment. Anyway, moving on to the next one.
Sometime it will depend upon their previous dealings.
Yes, ma'am. So, Mr. Bankesh, be careful while asking for a co-worker for a date from the next time. Okay, moving to the next question, it is by Advocate Sujata ma'am again. Is limitation period apply for filing complaint?
Yeah, limitation period applies. There are limitation period of 3 months for applying for the complaint, and apart from this 3 months, the ICC has powers to grant further 3 months. So in all, total is 6 months.
Yes, I think that would have cleared the cloud surrounding this question. Moving on to the next one, it is by Mr. Shubhag Garg. May we know what are the rights of the respondent?
All rights of natural justice are available to respondent, and since internal complaint committee conduct the even prior to inquiry, they try for conciliation as well. So if they can settle the case, it is better. Otherwise, they can conduct proper inquiry, and for that they can record a statement of the respondent as well as aggrieved person, as well as they can collect evidence from the office. So all rights are available to respondent. Even right to appeal is also available.
Yes, equal opportunity will be given both to the complainant as well as respondent.
Yeah, equal opportunity.
Yeah.
All rights relating to natural justice.
Yes. Moving on to the next question, it is asked by Ms. Suhasini Krishnamurthy. What's your take on penalizing the complainant for false complaint? Would it stop the women from stepping up or voicing against powerful person, since there is a chance of manipulating or tampering? How to strike a balance to help both the genders from being affected from false complaints? So I would like to break it into 2 questions, ma'am, if you are just okay with it. What is your take on penalizing the complainant for false complaint, for giving a false complaint?
Obviously, penalization is not appropriate action for false complaint. For contemporary scenario, we can relate it with financial aspect, and not only this, since it is social stigma on the respondent as well, so obviously there is need to strike the balance between these two, and for that the ultimate responsibility is upon the inquiry committee, that they will conduct proper inquiry and they will try to collect all essential evidence, and they will ascertain that this complaint is not false.
Now, going to the second question of this from the same person. Would it stop the women from stepping up or voicing against powerful person, since there is a chance of manipulating or tampering? So how to strike balance between both the genders from being affected from false complaints? So she is very particular about a person filing a false complaint and how to strike a balance between the genders.
Yeah, it is very tricky question, and for this question we can take the example of that Supreme Court judge case, and the female intern complaint against him, and they constituted the committee, and ultimately they, that committee that there is no such incident occurred. So obviously it is very difficult for a lady in such scenario, if there is penal provision for false complaint or for false evidence. So in such case, obviously it discourages the female to raise their voices. So there should be some restriction, and there should be some legislative restriction while dealing with these types of cases. So, and obviously, in this scenario, there is some need to amend the act.
Yes, ma'am. Incidentally, the next question.
One amendment is required.
Yeah. Incidentally, the next question comes relates to the topic which you are discussing right now. It is being asked by Mr. Yogesh Kulkarni, a regular participant in our webinars. He has been a regular participant and a patron as a whole. So he has asked, ma'am, can you suggest some amendments to present act which will prevent the misuse of the said act and false harassment allegations? So as you were discussing, can you just elaborate if you can, just for 2-3 points, ma'am, on this topic? What are all the amendments that can be brought into the present act? Do you think it is foolproof or comprehensive?
First of all, we must remember that all powers of the civil courts are given to the internal complaint committee. But somehow we can assess that internal committee may be under the influence of the employer, and employer does not want to create any hurdles or any kind of act which will affect adversely affect working of their organization or institution. So in such case, my first suggestion is that not only there should be committee of some external members as well that will monitor the task of internal committee, so that justice can be secured.
Yes, there need to be a committee. According to you, there need to be a committee which will supervise and supersede the existing internal committee.
Internal committee, yeah.
So moving on to the next question.
Since internal committee works under the influence of employer.
Yes, ma'am. So, just adding one more point from here where you have left it, it is my own personal question. Do you think the employer, whoever has given the complaint, the respondent, does he need to step down from that current position on moral grounds just because he has received a allegation against him? Do you think it is correct, or it is morally correct to step down from that particular post which he is holding till the at least till the completion of the inquiry?
Yeah, I think it is good suggestion, and till the finalization of the complaint, it is necessary that company should suspend that person during the time of inquiry.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
It is very good suggestion.
Yeah. Now moving on to the next question by Ms. Nisha Sachdeva. What kind of injury do I have to suffer before I have a legal claim for sexual harassment? I think the question which she wants to ask is, before she can actually file the sexual harassment, what are all the other injuries that the person have to undergo in a real life situation before her complaint is being at least considered by the employer or the ICC?
Obviously, in such type of situation, there may be demotion, there may be restriction on increment, there may be any case relating to assignment of work. So these types of injury may face a female before filing the complaint. And all these things may be considered as proof whenever she will file the complaint.
Madam, do you think just because a female gives a complaint against a co-worker, her name is tarnished in the organization just because she has come forward and ready to give a complaint against a particular co-worker or boss, against her boss? Is name shaming the best retaliation used by these people?
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. I agree with this. Since the social structure of India is quite different, and we have 2-3 cases in which female filed the complaint of sexual harassment against their bosses as well as their co-worker, and if they are private employees, in next employment they were rejected just because of this reason. So yes, it adversely affects the complainant as well.
Yes, ma'am. I think there we need to strike a balance between the affected person and the person against whom the complaint has been raised.
Yeah.
Yeah. Moving to the next question, it is by Mr. Bankesh again. Is sexual harassment only men harassing? Is the only men harassing women? Is it what you call as sexual harassment, or the vice versa also is possible, and it is coming under sexual harassment at workplace? If a woman deliberately harasses a man,
it is not mentioned in the act else anywhere, so it is still harassment by a man against the women. It is itself clear by the language of the act as well as objective of the act. But maybe in future, the legislature can incorporate this aspect as well.
Yes, I really appreciate Mr. Bankesh for involving in this session and asking excellent questions. I do hope he continues attending our next webinars and also asks similar type of questions. Moving to the next one, it is by legal school. As we all know that nowadays women are being harassed on internet through various modes. Where to file cyberbullying?
For that we have cyber cell, and again I am repeating the same thing. Sexual harassment at workplace and sexual harassment, these two are different concepts, and internet bullying is included under the sexual harassment, and for that we have cyber cells in each and every district, and for that you can lodge FIR.
Yes, I would like to point it out, make a point here that the topic of the session is sexual harassment against women at workplace. So all the questions which are related to this particular topic, you can ask. But the rest of the things, I think you can ask in the chat. The answers will be given to the questions, no doubt, but at a separate time. Moving on to the next one, it is by Mr. Abhinav Academy, Solapur. In the school and college level, president and all committee members of school harass women for permanent to get permanent seat there in that school. Is this how to what is the procedure to file the case? So that is what I understand from the question. I think in school and college level, just to get a permanent to become a permanent teacher, she has to undergo, a woman has to undergo a lot of sexual harassment. So is there any way where she can file a case against? So I think this has also been briefly discussed in this session. Ma'am, if you could just come in for 1 minute of time to just answer this question, we can quickly move to the next one.
Yeah, I think people are confusing between sexual harassment at workplace and sexual harassment. Sexual harassment is separate offense, and all these comes under the purview of sexual harassment. But sexual harassment at workplace can be conducted by only boss, co-worker, client. So it must relate to workplace only. And even for schools as well as by the instruction of the state government, there are committees to inquire about the sexual harassment. Student as well as any female person can go and file the complaint.
Yes, madam. Quickly moving on to the next question. It is by Mr. Sanathan Gowda. Which types of, what are the punishments available in case of sexual harassment cases? General punishments maybe.
Yeah, in case of sexual harassment, as per provision of IPC, there may be imprisonment up to 10 years, or in case of or 7 years, or 2 years. It will depend upon the various categories of the sexual harassment, but under the act, it will be treated as misconduct, and all the punishment applicable that will be that are provided under the service rule of that respective company organization. And if there is no rule, in such case, fine can be imposed upon that person, and that person will be dealt according to the Rule 9 of the Sexual Harassment at Workplace Rule 2013.
Yes, I think Mr. Sanathan Gowda would have got the answer which he was looking for. Moving on to the next question. It is by Mr. Gaurav Chaudhary. What is the authenticity or reliability that internal committee will take the complainant seriously and will not think about the company's name or goodwill?
I think we have covered this aspect earlier as well when we dealt with this amendment question. So obviously, somehow internal committees are working under the influence of the employer. So there is need to supervise working of these internal committees.
Yes, transparency is required, no doubt, but I hope that will also be addressed adequately in the coming amendments maybe. Moving on to the next question. It is again by Mr. Bankesh Sharma. If I am being harassed just because I am a lesbian or because I am a transgender, is that illegal?
Yes, it covers, the definition of sexual harassment covers all these aspects. So if you are facing any sexual remark or any remark just because of sexual orientation, it would amount to sexual harassment.
Yes. Now, next question is an interesting question. If it is asked by Mr. Kupu, if anyone says to her colleague that sir will grant you leave, and if everyone laughs, does it amount to sexual harassment against a woman at workplace?
Again, it will depend upon the fact of the cases. So any stereotype comment or which relate to stereotype activity, it may amount to sexual harassment.
Even though the statement said are true. Next one.
Yes.
Yes, it is by Mr. Shubha Kumar. What are the mandates from the 2013? Can you elaborate it, ma'am? So I think our special speaker has covered it adequately. Yeah. Moving on quickly to the next question. It is by Mr. Rajesh Tripathi. What happens to the person accused of harassment while the inquiry is going on? And what actions can the organization take against them? Just quickly, ma'am, we can just move on to the next question since we have also discussed about this question. Yeah.
Since internal committee has powers to issue any interim order, so they can issue suspension order, they can issue demotion order, or whatever they think fit.
Yes, that also depends upon case to case. Now moving on to the next one. So this is one of the practical aspects which our next participant has asked. Again by Mrs. Legal School. How much of evidence do I need when making a complaint? It is by Kanchan Thakur.
It is not simply relating to collection of evidence. Even if you have single evidence, sometimes it is sufficient to prove the act. If you have, suppose, an SMS, if you have recording of chat, if you have evidence, direct evidence of your co-worker, it is sufficient to prove this act. So there is no need to collect multiple evidence.
Ma'am, just adding one more personal question. Do you think it is correct on the part of the other person to whom we send a chat to take screenshot and use it against us as an evidence?
You can use it. You can show it into in the inquiry committee.
Yes, ma'am. Moving to the next question. It is again by Mr. Rajesh Tripathi. What if an employee of my organization is accused of sexual harassment by a female employee of another company? So intercompany sexual harassment matters. I think this. Yes, ma'am, your take on this.
It is like, what is the relationship between the female and male? It is important. If it is relationship is in relation to company or organization work, then she can file complaint in her company itself.
Yes, yes. Moving on to the next question. It is again by Mrs. Legal School. Does eyeing or staring at someone count as sexual harassment? I think all these general questions have been adequately covered. If you are having any specific questions, you can kindly ask it. And again, Ms. Nirja Chaturvedi has asked, how can data sanitization be done? What would be its role in reducing crime? I think I would like to state to her to be little more specific in asking the question. Now moving on to the next question. It is again by Bajaj sir. Under Prevention of Harassment of Sexual Harassment Act, the the respondent, whose duty is the burden of proof? In this act, whose duty?
Yes, of course, it is duty lies upon the complainant itself to prove the offense of sexual harassment.
Yes. And I think Ms. Neerja Chaturvedi and Manasvi Chaturvedi have asked the same question. I think if you are having any specific question or a personal question, you can just ask it in the mail so that our special speaker would be happy to answer it. Just for the want of time, we are just keeping your questions. And last question coming up for the day, ma'am.
No issue, Anand. If there is any further question, I'm really happy to answer all these questions through my email. They can email question to me at any time. I will be happy to answer all these questions.
Yes, ma'am. At the end of the session, I will leave your email ID in the chat box so that others can also take a note of it.
Please.
When can a third person in an organization lodge a complaint against a person if he or she is a witness for a sexual harassment against a particular women worker, co-worker?
No.
This is entirely between the
only victim. Only victim can file the complaint, and if victim is not capable to file the complaint, her close relative or her legal hire can file the complaint.
Yes, sir. We are just running out of time. Very last question coming up now. Do you think it is legally and morally right on the part of the ICC or the complainant if settlement is made in the ICC in spite of clear evidence of sexual harassment or a particular conduct against a particular women worker? So do you think if a settlement is made in the ICC, even if the crime is, even the sexual harassment has happened and both the parties are ready for a settlement, do you think it is both legally and morally right to settle the issue then and there and leave it as such?
Actually, somehow it is nature of this, it included in the civil wrong itself. So there is difference between criminal wrong and civil wrong. Criminal wrong is against the society at large, and civil wrong is against the person. And if person does not feel wronged, or he is ready to settle the issue, or she is ready to settle the issue, or so in such case, I think it is not wrong at all.
Okay, ma'am. Last question coming up. It has been asked.
Two persons.
Yes, if both the parties agree to settle, the matter ends then and there. Yeah. Very last question asked by one of the persons who requested for anonymity in our Facebook personal message in our AP Legal Chamber group. I would just like to state the question and leave it for you 2 minutes to answer the question so that we can wrap this session. What is your opinion on casting couch in film industry as a whole, be it Bollywood, Kollywood, or any other wood for that matter? Are women who approach for roles become scapegoats, considering that that is their workplace? That film industry itself is their workplace.
Yeah, definitely. You can consider film industry as their workplace, and we have many examples of casting couch, and many female actors file the complaint against the directors, producers as well. So we have lots of examples of it, but again, it is sexual harassment. It is not sexual harassment at workplace.
Yes, ma'am. With that, I think we are wrapping up this session. And I think we have not touched upon the sexual harassment at workplace in unorganized sectors like construction or similar type of industries. I think that itself is a specific topic to be discussed on a very on a different.
Yeah, but this act also provided about unorganized as well, and for that, this act provided constitution of the local committee at district level. So this act took care of all these aspects as well for unorganized sector as well.
Yes, ma'am. That itself is a very big topic that has to be discussed in a separate webinar, because there is a difference between people who are working in women who are working in organized sector and unorganized sector. The women here are bold and they are coming out in public to file a complaint against a co-worker or her boss in the workplace. But that is not a case for women working in unorganized sector, whose bread and butter solely depends on that particular work, and the authority or the only authority who will give the work or take it from her remains that particular supervisor there in that industry. So there are a lot of issues that are remaining unanswered in that particular unorganized sector, which has to be brought to light in a near future. Ma'am, I would just like to sum up the entire session.
Yes, Mr. Anand.
Yeah. No, can you...
Yeah, please continue.
Yeah. Ma'am, I think I would just like to summarize this session, the entire session, 1.5 hour session. So we have covered on the specific topic of sexual harassment against women at workplace. What are all the rights? What are all the responsibilities of a woman? What is the role played by the ICC? What is the role played by the supervising agents, committee which takes the decision or supervises the proceedings of this ICC? And what are all the reliefs available for a victim? And also we have briefly covered upon the rights and privilege, points available for the respondent as well. Going with the principle of natural justice, both the parties will be given equal opportunity to present their case. And we have touched upon many important case laws also. And in this session, we have been getting lot of questions from all the participants who have been actively engaged in question answer session. Until now, ma'am, from 6:40 till now, you have covered and answered 33 questions. I would just like to tell you that in this current webinar series which we are organizing, this is the maximum limit which we have reached, and we have set a benchmark for other people to emulate, ma'am. You have given clear answers to all the questions.
It is really your hard work, and it goes to you and AP Legal Chambers.
Thank you, ma'am. I think you have answered all the questions in a very you have not been politically correct, but you have been frank in answering the questions, be it for the rights of transgender or a lesbian, or for the relief available for the respondent. All those matters you have answered it to the point, and without considering all the other politically correct without taking any politically correct stand. So this quality in you.
I am not a political person.
Yes. So this quality in you makes you the fierce fighter for rights of the women. So I once again thank you for this wonderful session, ma'am. This was really enlightening session and very informative too. And there are no words that are sufficient to thank you for coming and transferring the knowledge which you have got to all the participants here. We at one particular point of time we had 107 attendees in this session, ma'am.
All credit
goes to the special speaker, ma'am. We are just the facilitators. The people come and watch the movie just not because of the theater, but for the hero who is acting or heroine who is acting, the actor or actress who is acting.
I'm really thankful to all the participants.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, I think whatever session, this thing you have given today, there are a lot of takeaways for all the participants here. And I am sure this general topic, which needs a greater importance and introspection, will be covered in the near future. And at this point of time, I request you that we will approach you once again for conducting another webinar from you, and a lot of people will be interested to attend.
Definitely, I'll be interested to interact with the student and interact with the person. So I will be happy to be in touch.
Yes, ma'am. With this, the session for today comes to a close. But please don't go away soon. There are a lot of exciting sessions coming up in the next weeks. The next session is scheduled on 14th June. That is on Sunday. It is by Advocate Joseph Aristotle, sir, Advocate on Record, Supreme Court of India, and also Secretary, Supreme Court of India, Advocate on Record Association. The topic is Race as an AOR. The details, posters, and the rest of the details will be sent to you individually. And I request all the participants to continue their support and extend the warm support which they are giving to our entire team. Even though I am like a face to our team, there are a lot of members in our team who are slogging for more hours than me, and who are playing other important roles. I would be failing in my duty if I do not give credit to my entire team. So it is a collective responsibility, and I thank each and every one of my team members, and also thank all the participants here for attending this entire session. Please continue your patronship in the coming webinars also. Thank you, ma'am, and thank you all the participants. I am leaving the special speaker's email ID in the chat. If you are interested, you can connect with ma'am by asking the questions, and it will be answered.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Anand.
Thank you, ma'am.
May I leave?
Thank you all. You can connect with the special speaker in the given mail ID. I hope this was an entertaining and informative session. Meet you all in the next session. Thank you once again. It is Anand signing off.